Hello and welcome back, and today I want to continue looking at that TerraMaster, the TerraMaster F5-221. Now I'm going to be comparing this particular NAS against a lot of 4 and 5 bays from the other big NAS brand names. I'm doing it for two reasons. One, to really make it clear just how much I admire the TerraMaster NAS devices at the moment because of the speed of their evolution, but moreover how they compare with all of the top tier NAS brands right now. And today I'm looking at Drobo. Now when I say top tier NAS brands, it's worth mentioning that Drobo, although known, and by known I mean fairly well known in some circles, higher than any other NAS brand, they are very specialist and they're not really a home NAS brand. People that have worked within the photo and video industry, when they've heard of names like Lacey and G-Tech and stuff like that for storage, Drobo is a name that's been handed around for a very long time. They've been in business for a long time, and a lot of their products, they really get their money's worth out of them. Like the previous generation of NAS device, I believe had a tenure of almost 10 years before a follow-up device was released. This is the Drobo 5N2, and it's available now if you shop around somewhere between 475 to about 500 quid, and that includes the VAT. Whereas the TerraMaster F5, that arrives for about 450. So it is cheaper overall, but they're very different beasts, both in terms of software and hardware. So what I want to talk about today is how to differentiate between them, and not so much which is better, but which is best for you. Now, it should be mentioned in terms of hardware, depending on your outlook, and particularly if you're a PC builder, the TerraMaster is going to be a lot more appealing to you. It has all of the classical PC builder traits that make it a superior device. Although they're both 5 hard drive or SSD NASes, it's worth mentioning that the TerraMaster arrives with a dual-core Intel Celeron CPU, the J3355, and 2 GB of DDR3 memory that can be upgraded to 8. On top of that, the device has got 2 LAN ports, they're on the rear. It's got 2 USB 3 ports, it's got an HDMI out, and we've got a full video on that one, and 2 rear mounted fans to keep things cool. Likewise, on the inside, we have trays that we can install 2.5 inch and 3.5 inch hard drives or SSD with screw holes built into the base of the device. The device, both of them in fact, support the very latest 14 TB hard drives from the guys at Seagate. And again, I know it's a plug, but it doesn't make it less true that they right now are the best value and indeed the most supported NAS hard drives right now, with Seagate Iron Wolf Health Management in the back end and Rescue data recovery services on the Pro series of drives. So that's data recovery included, not just warranty replacement. Now, like I say, in many classic regards to you PC builders, this TerraMaster is going to be a lot more appealing because in those contexts, the Drobo's a fairly dull box. Notwithstanding the nicely designed chassis, they spent a lot of time on that. The device is a 5 hard drive device, but no trays. You slot the drive straight inside. Both of them have got LED lights for their individual drives, with LEDs here on the TerraMaster, whereas on the Drobo, there's LEDs, it's about old, built into the bottom of the device with LEDs on the side as well, and we'll go into a bit more detail on that in a wee bit. On the rear, we have an enormous rear fan there that you can control on both devices and lower in height and the RPM as needed, and 2 LAN ports that support link aggregation and load balancing built into the bottom, no USB 3 ports. The CPU inside is an ARM based CPU, the Marvell 32-bit, and it's a quad-core 1.4 GHz. I think it's the Marvell 385, but maybe we'll double check that. They're in the same revision series, but it's a 32-bit architecture chip compared with the 64-bit in this. That means graphical embedding, it means better processing power and more efficient processing power overall. It also arrives with 2 GB of DDR3 memory, but you can't upgrade it. You've only got that 2 GB overall and nothing more. So in terms of traditional PC builder aspects, the Drobo is losing by a country mile, but it seems to be a lot more expensive. Now, why is that? Well, because Drobo have kind of spent the money, they've invested their money in very different ways, and it's another reason why people that, unless they're in a professional context, will never really know about Drobo, and the ones that do are the ones that go, oh yeah, Drobo, great. But me personally, I'm not a huge fan. I've never been particularly secret on this channel, but I have to admit there are lots of software and hardware advantages to this device that make it significantly more appealing to many of you. For example, those LEDs we mentioned earlier on. On the front, you have a smart series of LEDs. First, at the bottom, there's a line of LEDs that will fill up as the device fills up. It's actually reactive, so you can just glance at the device to see how much space there is inside. Both of them support RAID levels, with the TerraMaster supporting RAID 0, RAID 1, RAID 5, RAID 6, RAID 10, and BTRFS as its file system, with great file healing, background snapshots and integrity checks on all those data transmissions. Great stuff. The Drobo arrives with Drobo Beyond RAID, and it's their fluid RAID system. Anyone that's known about Synology and their SHR will be familiar with this. What it means is you can chuck any drives inside this, any at all. You've got 2, a 10 TB, a 3 TB, a 500 gig or whatever. And what it will do is it'll amalgamate and push them all together and give you the most available storage with still having RAID protection that protects you from losing one drive. The TerraMaster only supports traditional RAID protection, so that means all the drives have to be the same. Now, no one's going to fill this with random drives off the off. That's ridiculous. But a few years down the line, you might want to buy bigger drives, or you want to replace all of them or replace them gradually. And the ability to adopt different drives over time can be very advantageous. On top of that, the Drobo arrives with an SSD cache bay at the bottom. They call it an accelerator bay, and it gives you the ability to install an SSD in the base, an M-SATA SSD, which aren't available in enormous sizes, but that SSD will benefit you greatly in terms of read and write. Don't get me wrong, the TerraMaster supports that, but in order to take advantage of that, you'll need to install an SSD in one of those hard drive bays, which means you do lose a hard drive bay in order to take advantage of SSD caching on this device. On top of that, another cool feature of the Drobo, and again, gotta tip my hat to them, is it's got an internal battery. So what that means is the device itself, that internal battery, if you're doing read-write operations to the device or it's doing regular backups or anything, and the power in your building goes, or you have a power cut or a cable gets pulled, the device doesn't instantly turn off. What it does is it has enough power in that internal battery to either completely flush the memory, so emptying the memory there, making sure all the jobs are done, or safely suspending read-write operations. Because a power foul on a NAS during read-write operations can do two things. One, yeah, not great. The other one, critical. It has the potential to, one, cease your read-write operations so your data isn't backed up, which is not great, but it's not the end of the world, so it's still in another location. But the other thing it can do is completely destabilize and corrupt your RAID, which can be catastrophic, and the effect and damage you won't know until later on when those bad sectors start appearing or your RAID becomes unstable. Now, all that aside, I still do genuinely think if you're choosing between these two, the TerraMaster is the one I would pick for the following reasons. One, far more agile software. Drobo has a few applications, and although it does support Plex, it does it in a very minimal capacity without 4K support or transcoding. Whereas the TerraMaster arrives with that dual-core Intel CPU. If you spend another 100 quid, you can get the quad-core as well with 4 LAN ports as well on the rear. And you can transcode in Plex, and you can transcode natively 4K media outside of Plex. On top of that, you've got loads of applications inside first-party and third-party support that are just not there on the Drobo. The Drobo very much wants to stay by itself with its own software, and arriving at somewhere between 575 and 600 quid, it's a lot of money to have a kind of streamlined experience where it will tell you do it our way or not at all. Now, the device arrives with 3 years of manufacturer's warranty, with 2 years arriving on the TerraMaster, but you can get warranty extensions and software updates and data recovery service packages for this, which is very business, and a lot of you home users aren't going to care about that. But for a business, for a photo video editor, it's worth mentioning that lots of things like the internal battery, the internal SSD caching, the LED lights on the front, and one thing I didn't even touch on is faster RAID rebuild times and RAID integrity checks on this are things that are going to be very, very important to photo video editors out there. Now, I keep talking about content creators, but they're because they produce the most data. Those facilities are going to be very, very appealing. But know that you are buying an underpowered device. Know that these are the things that you're paying for and not the traditional things that people look for when buying a server of any kind. What you get with this is a better all-round Swiss Army knife device when compared with this more, again, content creator targeted device. So depending on your situation, you may make a very different choice from another person. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. We'll be facing this TerraMaster off against a few other devices, and of course the software overviews on all of these compared to. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Don't forget to support this channel by clicking like and subscribe. It keeps it going, and I'll see you next time.